Hi there, and welcome to another review. Today's film is Final Destination Bloodlines, the latest entry in the long-running horror franchise, which happens to be co-directed by both Zach and Adam. After over a decade since the last installment, anticipation was high to see how the series would reinvent itself, while staying true to its infamous formula of death, dread, and, well, escaping fate. Fans of the franchise know what they're here for: shocking set pieces, twisted kills, and that looming inevitability of death catching up. The big question is, does Bloodlines breathe new life into the series, or is this one just a rehash of what we've already come to know with Final Destination? Let's dive in and find out. Quick heads up, my reviews are not spoiler-free. Sometimes I skim, sometimes I go deep. We'll talk through the premise, the highs, the lows, the key takeaways, as well as providing my final verdict. If you haven't seen it yet, this is your spoiler warning. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the setup. Bloodlines opens in 1969 with Iris Campbell and her boyfriend visiting the newly opened skyline, a dazzling glass encased attraction. He secretly plans to use this as the perfect spot for his marriage proposal. Among the crowd, you see a young boy who's getting into trouble, casually tossing pennies from the top level, and one of which becomes the catalyst for a chain of small accidents that escalate into, well, a catastrophe. True to the franchise's DNA, Iris is suddenly struck with a vivid premonition, and in this premonition, she sees that the skyline shattering, collapsing, killing everyone inside in a horrific sequence of falling glass and twisted steel. Shaken, she manages to warn the crowd, her urgency amplified when cracks actually begin to spider across the dance floor. Dozens flee, narrowly avoiding the grisly fate Iris foresaw. The film then shifts to the present day, where we meet Caitlin, Iris's granddaughter, and she's plagued by recurring nightmares that echo Iris's vision from decades earlier. Caitlin reluctantly visits her crazy grandmother, hoping to understand the truth behind these hauntings and premonitions. She soon learns that her family has been entangled in death's design since the night in 1960. Determined to break the cycle and save her bloodline from its grim fate, Caitlin confronts the curse head-on, and spoiler alert, this is Final Destination after all, and death doesn't let anyone off the hook. With that said, let's talk about the positives of this film. The first pro would be a clever reboot angle. The bloodline concept creates a generational weight that makes the inevitability of death even more menacing. It also allows for callbacks to earlier entries without relying solely on nostalgia bait. In essence, Bloodlines expands the franchise's concept of death by adding a generational element, transforming the series from a simple sequence of individual survival into a far-reaching consequences for family members down the line who happen to cheat death. The second positive about this film is the set pieces still deliver. If you're watching The Final Destination, you're here for one thing: inventive kills. And Bloodlines doesn't disappoint. The skyline collapsing as an opener is a spectacular stage, mixing practical stunts with sharp VFX, and later deaths involving a faulty MRI machine, lawnmower incident, and there's a scene where someone gets crushed in between a dumpster truck. And these all continue to keep the franchise's appeal of signature deaths alive and well. Another positive I had for this film would be Caitlin's performance as one of the lead characters. She anchors the film pretty well, and she feels more believable and fleshed out than past protagonists, balancing this determination with fear in a way that keeps us invested. With the positives out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some of the negatives. The first negative would have to be the familiarity and how, while the bloodline angle is unique, much of Bloodline still feels like deja vu. The film relies heavily on the same rhythm, like the vision, there's panic, there's survival, gruesome death. Without shaking much of the formula too much, it continues to fall into familiar story beats, like does dying and coming back to prevent death from coming after you, or does taking a life give you more time? Longtime fans will see a lot of beats coming from a mile away. The mythology of death's design remains intact and relatively familiar with what you've come to know and understand in previous films. Aside from the familiarity, the second negative for this film would have to be the thin supporting characters. Outside of Caitlin and Iris, most of the cast is underdeveloped. They exist mainly to die, which is nothing new for Final Destination, but it feels more noticeable here since the film teases deeper connections to the bloodline concept, but doesn't exactly do much with that we haven't already seen before. The last negative I have for this film is the rushed exposition. The mythology surrounding Death's design and the family curse could have been more fascinating, but it's delivered too quickly. Instead of expanding on the rules or deepening the lore, it gets brushed aside in favor of rushing to the next set piece or to the next death. So we've talked about the pros, the cons. Let's now talk about some of the key takeaways. The first key takeaway is that death is the only constant. The film doubles down on the inevitability of fate. No matter how clever or careful the characters are, death adapts. It It's a reminder of how fragile our routines are and how quickly they can unravel. The second key takeaway is that horror's longevity comes from reinvention. By tying new characters to old ones through Bloodlines, the movie reminds us that horror franchises survive not only by ignoring the past, but by reworking it. Bloodlines shows the importance of balancing nostalgia with new ideas, though it only half succeeds at completely feeling fresh. In the end, Final Destination Bloodlines is both a return to form and a reminder of the franchise's limitations. The kills are inventive, the take on Bloodlines is interesting, and the lead performances hold it together. But the supporting cast is thin. The mythology, although expanded upon, leaves more to be explored and tweaked for future installments, as the movie does play it a bit safe in terms of adding lore to Death's plans. For me, this one lands at a 3 out of 5 stars. It's a solid but not spectacular return, and fans of the series will have fun. Newcomers will get the gist, but it doesn't fully rise to the potential of its premise as either a soft reboot or a dedicated sequel, as this film attempts to be both. What about you? Did Bloodlines give you the chills you wanted, or did it feel too much like deja vu? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Film Tips with Brian.